Hello, my name is Emma, and in today's video, we are going to talk about the reading module of the IELTS. I'm going to tell you some of my top IELTS reading tips. So let's get started. During the reading module of the IELTS, there will be 3 passages that you read. And for each passage, there are a bunch of questions you have to answer. The first tip I have for you is don't spend too much time reading the passages. What happens to a lot of students is they read word for word everything. They see a word they don't know, they keep trying to understand the meaning. You don't have to understand everything to understand the passage. If you don't know a word, that's fine. The better thing to do than to slowly read is to use skills such as skimming, which means you quickly read for the main idea, or scanning, meaning you look for keywords or you look for specific detail. A lot of students, what they do for the IELTS is they actually will read the questions first and then they will read the passage, and that way they know what they're looking for. You don't have to do this. It's one technique. Some students find this a lot easier. Other students like to read the passage first and then answer the questions. I recommend trying both out. First do the reading, then the questions, then try to read the questions first and read the passage, and see what you like better, what you're more comfortable doing. So the key thing here is don't read slowly. It's a time test. You have 3 parts you have to get through, 40 questions. It's very important that you read quickly. You can start practicing reading quickly also. There are a number of resources out there where you can actually start practicing and time yourself when you practice. Make sure you're not going over time. Number 2, similar to number 1, my tip is don't spend too long on each question. Some of the questions are difficult. They're possible. You can do well on them. But some of them you might be reading and you might think, oh, I don't know what the answer is. And you might look at it and think and try. Well, the problem is if you spend too much time on a question, there are 40 questions and the 1-hour limit for the test, it goes by very quickly. So you can't spend too much time on each question. So what I recommend is read a question, try to figure out the answer. If you don't know it, you can put a star beside it and come back after. Don't spend too long on any question. You can also take a guess, move on, and come back later. My third tip, spend less time on earlier questions. For the reading module, like I said, there are 3 passages. The first passage is the easiest, then the second passage, and then the third passage. If you spend all your time on the first passage, you're not going to have time to do the second and the third. And like I said, the first one is easier. So a good idea is to spend less time on the first passage, maybe about 17 minutes. Then the second passage, maybe spend about 20 minutes. And the third passage, maybe 23 minutes. You don't have to follow this exactly, but the main idea is spend less time on part 1, more time on part 3, because part 3 is harder. My fourth point is make sure you have enough time to transfer your answers. They will have an answer sheet and you're supposed to write your answers on it. It's very important to leave yourself time to transfer your answers from your test paper to the answer sheet. A lot of students, they work through the booklet and then they realize there's no time to transfer their answers. So make sure you leave time for this. Okay, my 5th tip is a very, very common error students make. 3 words or less. In the reading section, also in the listening, in the instructions you will often see the words write 3 words or less. They mean write 3 words or less. A lot of students write too many words here. So for example, if I'm doing a reading on archaeology. And, I have to write an answer. And my answer is the tomb of the pharaoh. For example, this is a pharaoh, if you don't know, ancient Egypt. If the instructions tell me write 3 words or less, and my answer is the tomb of the pharaoh, I've written way too many words. I've written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's too many. So I would get this wrong on the IELTS. I'd get a big X. Even though my answer was right, because I didn't follow the instructions and I wrote too many words, I'm going to get it wrong. So what would be the correct answer in this case is the pharaoh's tomb. This is 3 words. So in this example, that would be correct. We haven't gone over 3 words. Also, I could write for these questions maybe 1 word or maybe 2 words. I can write 1, 2, or 3 words, no more than that. Very common mistake. Number 6 is another common mistake students make. Their spelling. A lot of students forget that the reading section also has a writing component, and that is you have to write your answers. You also have to spell your answers correctly, and many students, unfortunately, make spelling mistakes. So it's very important to practice spelling before you do the IELTS. It will help you with the listening section, the writing section, and the reading section. I can't emphasize this enough. Spelling matters, okay? One idea is you can get a book, and any time you spell a word wrong, write it in your book and practice those words. Have a spelling book for yourself so you can see which words you often make mistakes with. Number 7. A lot of students also make this mistake with grammar. You have to use the correct grammar when you're answering a question. So for example, sometimes maybe the answer is castles with an S. But a student might write the singular version in their answer. Maybe they just write castle. But the correct form would be with an S. So you always have to be aware of grammar. The best thing to do is after you write your answer, check it to see if the grammar makes sense. Were they looking for singular answer? Were they looking for a plural answer? Okay, so that's very important to keep an eye out for. Finally, my last tip for today is a lot of students don't read the instructions properly. This is a very, very big mistake to make. A lot of students, they've done lots and lots of IELTS tests and they think they know it, so they don't bother reading the instructions. Always read the instructions. Even if you've done 100 IELTS tests, read the instructions just to make sure. For example, some common mistakes that happen is for multiple choice in the reading section. Maybe the question will ask you to choose 2 answers. And if you don't read the instructions properly, you might just pick 1. Or maybe it asks you to pick 3 answers. So it's very important to read the instructions properly. Another common issue with instructions is people confuse not given yes/no questions with not given true or false questions. They're different. So by reading the instruction, hopefully you can see the differences. And then when you're supposed to write yes, you don't write true. And when you're supposed to write no, you don't write false. So make sure you don't mix those questions up. Read the instructions. So in order to practice the IELTS, I invite you to come visit our website at www.ingvid.com. We have a quiz there on some of these tips you've just learned. And also I would recommend visiting another site, www.goodluckielts.com, for a lot more information on the test. I know you're going to do well on test day, so good luck. I'm rooting for you. I know you're going to do a good job. Until next time.